welcome back to another episode of Gameball. I'm your host, Matson Montilla, and today's great athlete stopping by is one of the best shortstops in college baseball, bringing success to not only one program but two, leading Georgetown to their first winning season in over 30 years, and getting Clemson started with a 24-3 record to begin the 2024 season. A fierce competitor from the great state of New York who shows flashes of Derek Jeter in the field and at the plate. Some call him the Gamecock Killer, while others call him Andrew. Today we welcome Andrew Ciufo. How you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks
I'm
for
good, man.
having me on here.
Definitely, definitely. So I saw, obviously last year you were having a great start to the season and then tore your ACL, right? So how has this offseason been? Did that change the way you were prepping for this next year?
Yeah, I mean, any injury is definitely tough, especially in the middle of a great season that we were having. Especially tearing your ACL. It's for anyone who's done it. It's definitely a very long and slow process to come back. I've had a couple injuries in the past, but this has definitely been, the longest and most intricate one. But yeah, I mean, I kind of just spent the entire summer doing my PT and doing rehab and trying to get back into baseball shape. Definitely can take a toll on your mental health. But I've had friends and family kind of around me, supporting me, all my teammates kind of reaching out and kind of just letting me update them on kind of where I'm at. So yeah, I think I've definitely been a little more locked in, and this being my sixth year, I think it's kind of just give it my all. And so I'm kind of dedicating all my time and effort to, getting my knee back to where it was and, being ready to go for the season.
You mentioned it's like it's a long process, but I mean, I feel like it's a very common injury for athletes to have, or not necessarily common, but it's very well spoken about.
See it a lot, yes.
Yeah. So you say it's a lot, it takes a long process, but then it's like you're a few weeks in and they always say like they feel like they can go out there and play, right? Like they can walk, everything's good with them. So like mentally, like what was that like? Where you feel like you could, but you know you can't?
Yeah, especially for me, because my early parts of my rehab was we were still in season.
Hmm.
And you talk about getting to the playoffs and kind of that exciting culture. Um, I think at that point I was still in my brace, but I mean, part of me was like, listen, I can go out there and swing and stuff like that. Obviously, I couldn't. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just long, and you get to a certain point where you definitely feel like you're able to do more than you can. But that's kind of sometimes misleading and can kind of result to more injury because, they just reconstructed my whole knee. And so if I go to do something that I'm not really supposed to do yet, it can definitely, change the timeline of your rehab. So I've just been trying to take it, day by day and listen to my awesome physical therapists, both here and on Long Island. Um, and just trying to be patient and kind of I've been looking at all the other athletes who have done the same injury who have come back even better. So that's been motivating
It happened in March, right?
me. Yes, in March.
So what's like the timeline looking like? When do you think you can start, I guess, fully getting back to the groove of baseball and training and everything like that?
Yeah, so I'm about 4 months out of surgery right now. The general timeline is kind of 6 months to kind of be fully back. But then at that point, there's kind of an aspect of, mentally trusting it again, especially in the infield when it's a lot of, reactive kind of movements. But I was told that probably come middle of September, I'm going to be able to, start fully practicing and kind of easing my way back into, just the baseball stuff, the long practices and all that stuff. And then, I mean, by the time game one comes around, I'm going to be more than 100%. So.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So did you know you were gonna have this extra year of eligibility when you got injured, or was that kind of just in the spur of the moment, looking at all the options?
Yeah, so I knew that I had it in kind of under my belt.
Mhm.
Honestly, my plan coming into last year was for it to be kind of my final year.
Mhm.
Um, and things changed, and so I got hurt in the middle of the season, and it definitely took me a while to come to the consensus of coming back for a sixth year. A lot of factors I was thinking about, but you know, it's not really the way that I want it to go out. Getting injured like that, and so a lot of people have just been telling me like you're not going to look back in 20 years and regret playing one more year of college baseball. Part of me felt like there was a little bit of a rush to, get into the real world, start making some money. Um, but I'm just going to play a kid's game for one more year, like Coach Bakich kind of convinced me. Um, but I'm excited for this year. I have nothing to lose, so it's going to be a great year.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely should be. I know the team's kind of starting to come together again. Got some new players coming in, so looks like it's really shaping up. And before we dive into this next season and more about Clemson, I want to kind of take it back to just when it all started, right? Playing as a kid. When did you first like get introduced to baseball? Because I feel like it's one of those sports where you play pretty early, right, compared to other sports. But like, when did you really start playing and think you loved it?
Yeah, I started playing, I guess, organized baseball when I was 4.
Hmm.
My dad played baseball his whole kind of upbringing too. He played at Lynn University, a D2 school down in Florida, and so I mean, so I have an older brother as well,
Hmm.
and so he was playing baseball, and he was and is kind of my role model, and so everything that he was doing, I kind of wanted to follow him. Um, so yeah, 4 years old, started playing t-ball. My dad kind of, I think the cutoff age was 5, but he somehow got me into playing when I was 4, and then ever since then, just we have a batting cage in our backyard. Um, and everything my family has done is kind of surrounds baseball. So just from 4 on, my family would travel to all these tournaments around the country, and they were super dedicated on kind of supporting us on whatever we wanted to do. And my dad kind of curated our lives and kind of telling us that we're good enough to play college baseball, and it could give us an opportunity to go to a really good school one day. So we kind of just worked hard, and he pushed us, and yeah. So ever since then,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, baseball is one of those sports where, because I played throughout my life and in high school, and it's like if you want to be good and be kind of seen, like you have to every week, every weekend, it's practice, games, travel ball. So it's really important to have your family helping you along that process. So you mentioned your older brother, Rich, right? He was obviously great in his own right. Went to Brown for
yeah,
college, went to Richmond afterwards. Him being a little bit older than you, and you said he was a bit of like a role model to you, right? Um,
yes.
how do you like influence you or help you throughout baseball?
Yeah. So I mean, our mom, she always says this now. She made it a point that we would do everything together, and be best friends and all that stuff. And just seeing the way he went about his business and his work ethic, especially getting to high school and college, I always felt like, I don't know. I mean, we've just done everything together, so I kind of owed it to him and myself to work as hard as I can, because I saw what he was doing on the baseball field, and the fact that he got the opportunity to go to an Ivy League school to play baseball. It just always sounded like something that I knew I could do. Um, and we just both pushed each other, especially when I think there was 1 or 2 years that we were in college at the same time, and it would be awesome that we were kind of in the same like baseball schedule, so that like we would both have games on a Friday night. We'd come back and kind of talk about it. And so he was kind of just my resource to, especially new things and new experiences in my life that he has already done, to kind of bounce ideas off and, kind of just reflect on our experiences, both the similarities and differences.
Yeah, definitely. Since he was a couple years older, like, did you ever have a chance of playing with him like in high school at all?
So I played in a varsity scrimmage with him when he was a senior in high school and I was a freshman.
Okay.
And then I played a in a summer league in Wilmington, North Carolina, in
Mhm.
the Coastal Plains League, and my coach there had coached him previously in that same league. And so towards the end of my first year in Wilmington, my brother came down and said to Coach Russ Burrows, who actually just won a championship over at the in Wilmington. Um, he said, "Hey, what are the odds I can get like a quick 10-day contract and just like play a couple games?" And he was like, "Sure." So we actually got the opportunity to play about like eight to nine games together when I was at shortstop and he was at second base. And there are definitely some very cool pictures and videos of us playing like and just turning double plays and all that stuff that we kind of grew up in the backyard doing, playing with the ball and all that stuff. It was the best experience ever.
Yeah, that must have been awesome. I remember reading about that. It was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure one of you said it was like the first time, like 6 years that you played together on the same field. So,
Yeah. It was the first kind of, real competitive game that we'd ever played together.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
that's
he's
that's cool.
obviously he's 3.5 years older than me, and he was out of eligibility at that time. But Coach Russ made it work somehow, and it was so fun in the time that we'll always look back on.
Mhm. So you mentioned like he was a second baseman, middle infielder, shortstop. Was that by chance that you ended up playing shortstop, or did he have some type of influence on you?
I think that kind of comes from my dad
Okay.
because my dad was a middle infielder as well. So my dad always says like he breeds middle infielders.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my brother and I have been playing middle infield all our lives. Rich kind of went more towards second base after he tore his ACL. I think going into his sophomore year of college, he did it. And then combine that with a little shoulder injury that he had. So more towards the end of his career, he moved over to second base, especially at Richmond. But it's kind of the same skill set required to play both positions.
Definitely. So you said he tore his ACL as well. Like, has he helped you through this process at all then?
Absolutely,
Mhm.
yeah. So my dad has had two ACLs. My
Okay.
brother had one. And unfortunately, I had one. But yeah, both between my dad and my brother, they both helped me big time, and they had a lot of pictures of the process of kind of what it looks like. And so anytime I would say like, "Is this normal at this point?" Like they would kind of talk me through it, and they have the experience, so they definitely helped me.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. And so I guess you guys all played the infield and you all tear ACL. That's kind of the family motto right there.
I was really hoping I wouldn't follow suit in that regard, but things happen.
Yeah. So talking about shortstop, I mean, when I played baseball, I was a lefty. So I was like, it would be a disaster if I was playing short,
Yes.
apparently, right? So I pitched, I played center, and I always felt like short was probably, I mean, I think first was pretty difficult, but I feel like short's probably the hardest position on the field. So, like, what was the process of learning it? And obviously, you've been playing in college for 6 years playing that position. So, how do you master it and like become really good at that such a difficult position?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all kind of stems from my upbringing, and so I grew physically very late compared to my other teammates, and that. So I was 4'11" coming into my freshman year of high school, which is very small, and obviously I didn't have the strength or the speed or anything. And so my dad always kind of instilled in me the fundamentals of kind of what it takes to field a ground ball. And so, I feel like, especially in this day and age, a lot of people try to be flashy and do stuff for the camera. But especially kind of coming into high school, throughout high school, early stages of college, I think focusing on the fundamentals is the biggest thing. And then those other plays that are a little bit above average, you can kind of work on. But for the majority, I think you just need to work on your footwork, your kind of transfer. I think that's a big thing. And another thing I'd say is I grew up playing wall ball. And so in my basement, I have a cement wall that I would spend hours just throwing the ball against the wall and just kind of, working on my glove hand. Um, so that's honestly the biggest. I would recommend just throwing the ball against the wall and just, you know, mastering that first, and then it'll kind of translate to the games.
Do you think like the fundamentals might be the more like underrated part of the position?
I think so. Because honestly, on social media and everything, you see all these highlights and all the cool plays. So I feel like people will tend to try to practice those more so than just the ground ball right at you.
Mhm.
And our coaches here at Clemson say the hardest, especially Coach Jack Leggett, who's a legend, always says the hardest ground ball is the one directly at you because you see it and you tend to get flat-footed and say, all right, it's right at me, it's easy, and you don't really attack it, and you kind of just let it play you, and more times than not, it'll eat you up. Um, so yeah, I just think those routine ones and kind of mastering your footwork, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
So when you say mastering your footwork, is that more on like shuffling your feet to throw the ball to first or getting position? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything it takes to feel the ground ball, and you can slow down, all of the major league guys who have been doing it for their career. Um, Especially at shortstop, it's kind of like a dance a little bit. And so once you see it, you prep step before the pitch is thrown, and then if it's right at you, you need a little bit of momentum going towards first base before you field it. And so it's something that we work on every single day, even before practice at Clemson. Um, just kind of getting the rhythm of your feet kind of in tune with the ground ball, because you can't just kind of field it here and then start getting your momentum towards first base. And this is the one, kind of the routine one directly at you. Um, you can slow it down, and you can see that every high-end shortstop will have some sort of momentum going towards first base as they're fielding it. So it's kind of all in one rhythm.
Okay. And do
Yeah.
you think the speed of college baseball makes it a little bit more difficult to like less room for error too?
One thing I noticed, the jump from playing at Georgetown to ACC is definitely a little bit quicker too. Um, and especially as a shortstop, you need to have sort of an internal clock in your mind when the ground ball is hit, and knowing your runner is definitely important too. Um, and so if you know that a quick guy is at the plate and he hits one right at you, you don't have to rush, but you definitely need to be cognizant of, how fast they're getting down the line, and know that you can't really take your time. So that's another part of it too.
Okay. So something, I mean, and obviously you said that the speed changed and it was a little bit different going to the ACC. And I'll be honest, I watched a lot of the Clemson games, but I can't like pick out all the errors, whatnot. But I remember something I read was in the first 6 games you at Clemson, you had 5 errors. The last
Yeah.
21, you had 0.
Yeah.
So obviously there was something going on there. Kind of talk me through like what occurred and then how you kind of fixed it because 21 straight games with 0 is just that's unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was probably a combination of, so my senior year at Georgetown, I had shoulder surgery. So I
Mhm.
didn't play in one game that season. And so my first game here at Clemson, it was the first time of me playing in a game in probably a year and a half, in like a real competitive game.
Mhm.
So I think that had something to do with it, along with the fact that, I'm just kind of getting my bearings at Clemson, and it definitely was faster. I think probably more than half of those, maybe two or three of them, were throwing errors. And I think that was probably a combination of, me not setting my feet the right way, and me maybe trying to be a little too flashy. Um, and so, yeah, it definitely is just a different experience. And I think that it was really good for me to, experience that and kind of learn from it. And yeah, it kind of just helped me, because obviously baseball is a game of failure, both hitting wise and defense wise. And from those failures, you can either, let it get you down, or you can take something positive from it.
Okay.
And so that's what I tried to do. And, just tried to play as solid defense as I could behind my pitchers, who just always fill up the strike zone.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a couple more questions about just shortstop itself because again, I think it's such a fascinating position, and then we'll move on. But one of the questions I have is I remember reading, a bunch of baseball players from the MLB shortstops. They said something they always try and do is shorten the throw to first for several reasons. One, to maybe protect the arm. Another is just like you said, the speed. Are those like little things? I know you touched on the footwork a little bit, but are those like thoughts in your mind of like how can I make this less of a struggle on my arm?
Definitely. And that's kind of what plays into getting your momentum towards first base. Um, because especially a ball that's hit really hard at you, where you have a little bit of time, rather than trying to get it and throw it right away, you have some time to, secure it first, and then take a shuffle or two. And so obviously the throw's closer. You don't have to throw it as hard. And it's kind of just a feel thing. And so based on the speed of the ball coming at you, the speed of the runner, kind of where the ball is hit. I mean, obviously, if it's towards your backhand, it's kind of hard to get closer to first base. So it's kind of just a combination of a lot of different factors, and that's, I feel like, what the viewer of baseball who has never really experienced it can't really see. But obviously, the ones who have been playing for a while just have seen so many different types of ground balls. So I think just that experience and those years and years just kind of helped me to where I am now.
Mhm. Makes sense. And my last question about the position is the I don't know if the transition is the right word, but when you try and turn two, right? Let's say the ball's hit to you, second baseman's coming to the base, or vice versa. Like, how do you read it? Like, what's that instinct of being able to turn to and throw the ball to first and get that out and such?
Yeah. Um, Again, I think it's dependent on where the ground ball is. And so one kind of directly at you, you try to get your momentum going towards second base again, momentum. Um, and I mean, you just try to give him the best speed possible. And while everything looks very quick, the job of the person who the ground ball is hit at is not to be quick. It's to try to give them the best speed possible. And so again, it's dependent on if it's hit to your backhand, you can try to get around it and give them a short little sidearm throw. But your job as the shortstop, where the ball's hit to you, is to give him the best speed, and then it's on him to be quick. And so you always say, make sure of the first out. And so worst case scenario, you're getting the one out at second base, and then if you turn two, then that's kind of a bonus.
Yeah. So how many, like, I know you came into Clemson, right? That's a new second baseman there.
Yeah,
Like, do you spend a lot of time working with whoever it might be?
every single day,
Mhm.
every single day. And last fall, it was a combination of, or I guess last spring too, it was a combination of Blake Wright and Jaron Purify. Came in as a freshman and just tore it up. Um, but yeah, I mean, every single day. So some of our practices can last pretty long time, 3, 4 hours. And every day, the beginning of those practices, you're kind of with your position group. And so all of the infielders are together. And so you're constantly working with those people on where they like to feed and kind of the timing of it all. And so it definitely doesn't come instantly. There are always, little errors, but again, you learn from them. Um, and yeah, so between Blake Wright and Jaron, I mean, you see, maybe we've turned 15 double plays in games, call it, but we've turned probably 1,000 double plays in practice. So
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those, like, such an intricate thing. Like, you have to get it perfect, but it's just so hard to understand, like, how something like that has to be so perfect.
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it looks very fast,
Mhm.
um, but we slow it down and break it down in practice, and so you kind of build up to that speed, um, and so that when it does come in the game, it's kind of just second nature. You don't really think about it.
Does, like, understanding who's pitching on the mound that day affect how you might position yourself on the field and understand the ground balls that might be coming at you?
Absolutely. And so two people that come to mind for me um, is Ethan Darden and Lucas Malstead, who throws from like a sidearm. And so for some reason, the way their balls move, it kind of tails down into the zone, which produces a lot of ground balls towards the left side, third base and shortstop. Um, and yeah, so especially when they're pitching, I'm expecting every single ball to come to me. And there are days where I'll play in a 9 inning game and won't get one ground ball hit to me. But then on the opposite side of that, I can get 11 ground balls in one game. So, just being out there, you need to expect every pitch that you're going to get a ground ball. And the way you position is kind of based on the hitter. And so we have kind of the defense cards, which if you watch, you could see kind of every new batter, everyone in the field takes them out, and you kind of just shows us their tendencies and kind of maybe you should shade a little more towards this way or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the way someone's pitching, you can definitely kind of anticipate, um, what kind of ground balls they're going to produce and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. I remember watching Darden pitch a lot, and you kind of picked up on that. There was a lot of ground balls, and
Yeah, it's just
honestly,
the way his, I guess, it's like a sinking fastball that runs into a righty. It just makes them roll over, and so it's awesome. I love ground balls. So
Yeah, I can imagine getting dirty. I mean, South Carolina game was a perfect example of that. But before we again get into the college, now I want to talk a little bit about high school briefly, recruitment and everything. I mean, you said you came into high school at like 4'11", right? But you ended up playing varsity for 4 years. I don't know if you took a fifth year in high school or not. I know you went to that prep academy.
yeah.
Uh, but what was high school like? And was there, I know you said you like grew up, believing you could play college ball, but was there a specific year, whether it was like during the summer or during the season where you're like, yo, I'm low key, like I'm better than everyone. Like I can get there, like for
I mean,
sure.
I never said that. I think it was probably towards the middle of my high school career where I kind of realized that I was talented. Definitely not better than everyone else. But yeah, so my high school experience was a little unique. I did 3 years at Patchogue Medford High School, which is 5 minutes from me from home on Long Island. It's a public high school and played, I think, JV 1 year and then varsity in 10th and 11th. And then I got the opportunity to go to Phillips Academy Andover, where my brother actually did a postgraduate year. And so that he graduated Pat Med and then did 1 year there. And that's kind of what got him to and so I repeated my junior year and spent 2 years at Andover, um, mostly for baseball. The baseball coach, Kevin Graber, was awesome and has done so many things for me and taught me so many things. But I think it was probably during that transition where I kind of felt, valued and kind of got the confidence instilled in me that, I'd be able to play at a pretty good school. And so I think it was probably once I got there and started living on my own. And, I feel like it definitely made me mature a bit in just a lot of things, but especially my work ethic in baseball, I think definitely picked up there.
Definitely. And so you said you had the opportunity to go there. Was that, I know your brother went there. Um, did you go there like, I don't know, explain, like, did your brother go in there kind of impact you on like thinking about potentially going there? Or was that just, again, one of those things where it
Definitely.
just all
If,
came
if
together?
Rich didn't go there, then I wouldn't have even heard about it
Okay.
because repeating a year of high school is definitely unheard of from where I'm from.
Hmm.
And I know in New England, kind of where the school is, it's pretty common with like hockey players and other sports that are trying to just get another year to get a little stronger, some better grades, kind of different types of reasons. But yeah, even after he went there, I had no plans of going.
Hmm.
And so KG, who was the coach at the time at Andover, who's now with the Chicago Cubs, reached out to my family and was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I was like, "No way." It's like I don't want to go up there and live by myself for 2 years. Um, Ultimately, I obviously wound up going there, and it was the best decision I've ever made.
Did going there like help you like with recruitment? Was Georgetown, for example, an option beforehand, or was that a team that appeared because of it?
It was a team that appeared because of it. Andover, it's a very prestigious, high school, and a lot of high academic colleges definitely recruit from there.
Mhm.
And KG had good relationships and had already sent a few guys from Andover to Georgetown. Um, and so that's definitely where that opportunity came from.
Okay, definitely. And what was like now just in general, Andover and also playing in New York with Medford. What's the competition like in the Northeast in terms of high school ball? Because everyone, you always hear the South, the Southeast, just like colleges, might is year-round baseball. So obviously there's more room to play. But I mean, I've looked at Long Island, for example, and Naraki's from there, right? Played at Clemson. Then Justin, I was also from New York. I'm not sure what part, but like, what is that competition like in the Northeast?
It's definitely good competition. Um, I would say that it's a little more rare to hear guys from the Northeast going to schools like a Clemson or other ACC or SEC schools, just because the level of exposure at high school games up there and tournaments up there is definitely a bit lower than where all these schools actually are, kind of down here. So it's definitely you definitely hear about certain guys that go to schools like this, but it's definitely a little less common. And so I think the talent is just as good, but I just think it's the level of exposure that kind of affects it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel that's the same way for, I mean, in every sport you can think of. Just where you're located matters a lot.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I was talking to this one kid, Marcus Dixon. He plays on the football team, and he's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he's like competition's just as good. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. was like in his like division, but you don't think about that being like a football state. So I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, honestly, it's about the opportunities and just being seen at the right time. Like your dream school could be in the stands and you have no idea, and then you play well, and then that kind of sparks something. And so it's not luck, but it's just getting those opportunities in the eyes on you.
Yeah. So bring that up, and now just think about recruitment. I feel like football, basketball, right? It's well known. People like there's 24/7, like it's very well tracked recruiting in the cycles. But baseball, I think, is a bit different, especially since you have players getting drafted out of high school to go to the MLB, other players, maybe taking an extra year or going to a college. So what is that recruiting cycle like, and how was it for you?
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say, a little more unique compared to other sports. Um, I think it happens a bit later nowadays than some other sports. Maybe they changed the rules or something like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty stressful, just because you have a bunch of schools that you don't really know too much about, and it's kind of on you to learn more about them. Personally, I didn't have that many opportunities coming out of high school, and I think that's probably more so because of my size at that time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it can definitely be stressful. And I got to go through it again when I entered the transfer portal, and that for me was a little bit less stressful just because I felt like I was more mature and was able to have adult conversations with these coaches that were calling me. Definitely had a lot more opportunities in the transfer portal. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of on you to not stress yourself out as much, and you're kind of in the driver's seat. And especially when a lot of schools kind of want you and want to talk to you and learn more about you, I think it's on you to kind of just like settle in and kind of take it one by one, and not work yourself up too much.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And you know, you ultimately went to Georgetown, and then Clemson, and there's recruiting cycles. And you said don't be stressed about it, but was there like what's a time frame like? Do when coach or teams offer you, do they expect a fast commitment? Do you kind of wait it out? I know your brother went through his own things with recruitment, so I'm sure that his guidance helped you and your dad too. Uh,
Definitely.
but like, how did you kind of handle that all when you got that initial offer from X a type of university?
Yeah, I think a lot of coaches do it a lot of different ways, and I've always appreciated the coaches that say, "Hey, listen, here's what we're offering you. There's no, urgent timeline. Obviously, they kind of need to know who's coming in, and so, um, but yeah, I don't. I think the coaches that give you a very harsh deadline, um, I think there's a little bit of a game involved in that. That's not necessary. But for me, Georgetown, how I remember it is Coach Wilk, um, you know, talked to me on the phone. I went for a visit, gave me the offer, and said, "Listen, I'm not the type of guy that's gonna, say you need to tell me by whatever this time on this day." And so I think that definitely can help a player when time's not weighing on them and they're still trying to still figure out where they want to go and what they want to do. Yeah, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, definitely. So you end up going to Georgetown, right? 2020, COVID didn't play, weird year.
Yes.
21 though, you became like a primary player, right? You started 26 games. Uh, so did having that like, I mean, they played a certain amount of games 2020, but like having to have that shortened season, no pressure to play. Do you think that helped you kind of prep in 21 where you had this whole year of just collegiate development and then you can kind of like, I guess, not relax, but focus on yourself and then 21 comes around, you can really play ball?
Yeah, that was a weird year for me. Obviously, once COVID hit, we were actually in Florida at our spring training games, and then we just got sent home. And Georgetown was a little bit. Uh, they handled it in a unique way, where they didn't really tell us what was going on if we were having a season, didn't have us back on campus. So my roommate and I, Pat DeSalvo, we took it upon ourselves to find a training facility in Tampa, and we wound up living down there for about 2.5 months, kind of just training by ourselves, working camps with the team that was based out of this facility, helping out a little bit. Um, but yeah, there was really no direction or anything like that. We were kind of in the dark for quite a while, and then we got a text that said, "Hey, our first game is in 2 weeks. Get back to DC whenever you can, and we'll play." So it was definitely a unique experience. Very happy that my roommate and I went down to Tampa and had a place to train. Um, but yeah, and then that was when a brand new coaching staff came into Georgetown as well. So between that and the COVID and not really knowing what was going on, it was definitely a little weird. But I look back on that time and kind of just laugh about it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it because it definitely gave me that college experience that I needed. It was my first time playing college baseball. And I think it's definitely helped me.
So just trying to understand the timeline now. So you came in like the season was spring of 2020
Yes.
or okay. And so
Yes.
you trained and then the season came back on. Is that how that worked?
Um, the spring of 2020, that's when everything got canceled.
Yeah.
In the summer of 2020, I was home. Fall of 2020, they didn't have us back. And then it was like the winter of 21 where we went down to Tampa, trained, and then
Okay.
I think it was like middle of March of 2021 that we said, all right, we need to go back up to DC and play in the college baseball season. And then like we haven't practiced. Like it was a little makeshift season.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. I was a little confused at first, but that is
Mhm.
crazy though. I mean, taking it on yourself, going to Tampa, practicing. I mean, that must have been like, how do you even think about that? Like, honestly.
I was home and my roommate was home in Jersey, and we were both just getting bored and frustrated that we didn't know what was going on. And so we said, all right, we can continue to sit home and, just wait, or we can take it upon ourselves to do something. And so we reached out to the contacts that we knew. I think it was actually my coach from Andover that connected me with the owner of that facility in Tampa.
Mhm.
And so we got an Airbnb down there in the pretty sketchy area of Tampa. Um, and yeah, we just trained for 2 months, had a good time. I knew some of my friends were going to school down there, so we linked up with them.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, a lot of good memories from those two months.
Yeah, I mean that's dedication right there. That really is. And obviously, 21, you got a lot of playing time, like I mentioned, so I'm sure that helped a little bit. But what was that? I know you said Georgetown to Clemson was a change, right?
Yes.
Different play style, speed. High school to Georgetown, I mean, that's still high school to college ball. So, you know, hitting, fielding, like what was the speed like for you? Because obviously it wasn't the best season in the world, but like it's your first year.
Definitely more of a change than coming from Georgetown to Clemson.
Mhm.
I mean, coming like high school to college is a huge jump. Um, between the pitches that you see, the consistency of good pitchers, and just the overall strength of guys. And so that, especially after not playing in 2020, coming into 2021, it was just like, listen, we're just gonna do our best and see what happens.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, definitely I remember the pitching was definitely higher end than I was used to seeing in high school. Um, but like I said, it's just a game of failure, and you need to go through those seasons. And stretches where you're not really seeing the ball well. But yeah, I would say that that was probably the biggest jump that I've experienced in my career.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. But obviously, it led to the benefit. I mean, 22. That was, I was reading about it. You were on another planet playing, and the team itself was just like, I don't
Itself.
know. That was awesome. That must have been a great year. I mean,
Mhm.
I can only imagine. Like, what was the lead up to, and what was that year like for you?
I mean, it was the first time of me having a whole fall or
Mhm.
our team having a whole fall together. So it was more back. It was like a back to normal type of season where we kind of knew our coach at this point. We had a whole fall to train and lift like a normal college school. And Coach Thompson came in and did what he did, and he put together such a winning culture and a team that went on to the playoffs for the first time in a long time at Georgetown. First winning season. And I just feel like the way that, he instilled confidence in us and the way he trained us and kind of all the things that he did just kind of led to a chemistry on the Georgetown team that, everyone was bought in. And that was something that I kind of experienced for the first time. And I think that's what played into our success. And we had a lot of good tools on that team. And yeah, I think that was the beginning of Georgetown's new winning culture, because in the past they weren't really looked at as a competitor in the Big East, and now they're a competitor for a regional. So the way that Coach Thompson came in and kind of changed the whole direction of the program within a couple of years is just awesome.
So he coached. I know you said there was coaching change when he came in. Did he coach the 2021 year as well?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so that must have been, and you said this was your first fall together. That must have been a weird season in 21 where you got this new coach and I mean, I'm sure he talked to you, but barely knew him.
Yeah, yeah, he came in and I met him for the first time, and then less than a week later, we were going to UConn to play them. And it was just like that's not the way it's supposed to be. He didn't really know any of us. We didn't know him. He didn't recruit any of us. And so, like I said, it was a weird makeshift season. Um, there's nothing better that he could have done. It was just the way that it was.
Yeah, and UConn's not a fun team to play right off the bat. I mean, that's wild to think about. I can't imagine that process.
It's insane. And no college team should ever feel this way, but we were just like, listen, we don't feel prepared. We're just going to go out there and play. Like, so there was really no preparation kind of leading up to that. But, it was what it was. And, we obviously the next year we learned from it. So,
Oh yeah, definitely excelled. You made all Big East team. I mean, you hit I think just under 300, like 297, right? I mean, you were going crazy. Like you were having an awesome season. Having that full year of practice. I mean, and seeing it translate onto the field, like what did that do for your mindset? Did that help you at all? Like realize like I'm finally getting to a groove after a very turbulent 2 years in college.
definitely, definitely. I think just the combination of, being able to practice with my team and my teammates for a whole fall and beginning of the spring, along with me kind of just, getting into a real lifting program with our lifting coach. Um, and kind of just all the conditioning. I feel like I was just in a much better shape to play a full season of college baseball. And that definitely makes you more confident when you're out there, because if you don't feel, strong enough or, you know, um, yeah, I mean, it just definitely weighed on me. And again, I think just the team that we had contributed to my success, because all my best friends on the team and we're just out there playing a kid's game. And so
Yeah.
that definitely kind of eased the stress a little bit.
Yeah, how important do you think it was to get into that you said, let me think, that weightlifting program, right? Adding some weight. I remember you mentioned coming into college, that might have been one of the knocks on you, right? Maybe not strong enough. I remember you mentioned before. So get into that full program, like did that really just change just again the mindset, the trajectory of like I can really perform at the highest level now?
I think it changed my mindset and it changed my ability to keep up with the speed of college baseball.
Mhm.
because when you're stronger, everything comes a little bit more effortless. You don't need to, exert as much effort when making a throw or when trying to swing. It kind of just comes a little more free. And I think, again, watching my brother in college, he still is now, but he was jacked. And I saw kind of the way that he was hitting and kind of what that did for him. And so that even, motivated me more to, put some muscle on and realize that that's what it took to, succeed at the college level.
Was there like a game that just comes to mind from that year that was just like a key moment, like that was fun for you? Like I know I remember you mentioned you had like a walk-off sack fly that year. I know you had to go ahead, run against William and Mary.
22 or 21.
22. Or was that in 21? You had the walk-off.
21 was the walk off sack fly.
How was that? Was that fun?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because if you look at our record that year, we I think finished at 6-25.
Yeah.
And obviously that kind of makes sense from all the what I kind of just told you about before that season. Um, but yeah, that was against Creighton, I believe,
Mhm.
which is like a very good team in the Big East. So I'm happy that I was able to, get something out there for I think it was AJ Lotsis to score. Um, but 22, I would say that one of the big moments was going to the playoffs for the first time.
Mhm.
And we didn't win a game in the playoffs. I think we just lost 2 games and got eliminated. But that second game against Xavier, I remember there was one inning we were down, I think 8-1, and Jake Hyde, who is now going to Duke, let off the inning with a home run, and then Cam Meyer hit another home run, and then the bases got loaded, and then I had a grand slam to take the lead in that inning. And so that was when I think about that season, that's kind of the inning that comes to mind, and where all the momentum was shifting and everything. Yeah, that was kind of a big moment for us, and even though it didn't result in a win, I think that's something that that whole team will remember.
Yeah, no, that must have been pretty sweet too. A grand slam, like I feel like every kid dreams about the
Mm.
grand slam, the walk off. You've done both.
Yeah,
I mean, what's a better feeling, like grand? I'm assuming the walk off, but what do you think was a sweeter?
definitely the walk off,
Yeah,
especially in a game like that where you know a rivalry like that, which I've never experienced. I was brand new to it. I you know heard about it the whole fall and the whole off season that this is the rivalry, this is the game, and yeah. So that was probably a better feeling.
yeah. I remember reading you compared it to the Yankees Red Sox for the MLB, which is that's some strong words right there. But I mean I think Clemson, South Carolina, when it comes to baseball, might just be up there, at least in college baseball. It's like one of the most intense rivalries there is. Um,
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, what was that first game like for you in that rivalry? I know, obviously we know how it ended, right? That big game, the walk off. But going into it, like walking onto the field, like could you feel the intensity?
I think we all started to feel it once it got closer to game time. We obviously knew what was at stake, me and my whole team. And I think, especially in the locker room and everything, we just tried to, treat it like a normal game. And even though it was at a neutral site, it was in Columbia. So it was definitely, we felt that a little bit. But, we just tried to calm our nerves and treat it like any other game. And we knew that it would be a really good game because both teams are very talented. Um, but yeah, I think it was a great atmosphere, and you see half orange and half dark red, and it was just a lot of fun. That field is great, the Columbia Fireflies field, great field. But yeah, we knew we were ready for an intense battle.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I mean, I feel like it must have had a little bit more um, intensity to it because the first game got postponed, which was supposed to be at South Carolina. And so you have that day of just like thinking about it, right?
Yep, yep. I remember we were sitting in the hotel when it was pouring rain, and we were just all like like you can feel everyone's kind of blood boiling a little bit just because we wanted to get out there on Friday night at their place and play. And so yeah, there was definitely a lot of, built up kind of feelings within us that we were like, all right, we're ready to go whenever they say we're playing.
Did you did you like when you got on the field and you were like playing those first couple innings, and then obviously later on, that's when it really started to kick in, because it was just so close. Was there like a moment where you had to like say to yourself like, I gotta clear my mind, like calm down, like I don't want this to affect how I play?
Honestly, when you're in a game like that, you don't black out, but you kind of just get into this zone where you're just like super locked in for as long as it takes. Um, and I think a combination of just being super focused while at the same time playing free and not trying to force anything and still having fun with your teammates, even in the dugout when things are super intense, like you kind of just like you talk with your teammates and just talk about how cool it is and kind of just take everything in
Mhm.
rather than trying to force anything or trying to muscle up and do too much. um, I think it also comes with just trusting your team and knowing that everyone is going to do their job. And so just not trying to, you know, do other people's jobs, do your job, focus on that. And, if you trust your team, then everything will, you know, work itself out.
Yeah. I mean, and during that game, you had a couple web gems. I want to say the sixth inning was a big one, the fourth even. Like you had a couple big plays. Um, was that pretty like I don't know. I feel that's got you gotta be thinking like that was pretty sweet, right?
Yeah, I love the opportunities to, make cool plays for my defense, my pitcher who's working his ass off. And that was Ethan Darden and Lucas Malstead.
Yeah.
I'm always expecting, like I said, ground balls from them, whether it be right at me. I'm just kind of on my toes.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, especially in a game that close, when your pitcher is dotting corners and just looking amazing, any opportunity that I can help, rob a single or help a run from preventing, it just, I think it kind of just boosts the camaraderie within the dugout. Um, yeah, yeah, that was a really fun game.
So when you guys got to the extras, right? That's when it was really heating up, 4-4. You could tell like every pitch mattered, right? It meant something. What was what was that mindset throughout those couple innings? And I believe you had before you had your big homer, you faced him a time before, right? And
Yeah,
struck out, right?
yeah,
So how did you kind of diagnose the situation and really zone in those extras and then eventually when you came to the plate?
yeah. I mean that pitcher that came in was pretty good. He had uh, really good fastball that kind of had some like ride to it, and so me along with a bunch of my other teammates who were late and under it, and weren't having success. But then our pitchers went out and did the same thing to them. So it was kind of like a battle of who's gonna get that first hit to get something going, get some momentum going. Um, and I remember Coach Bakich came into the dugout, got us all together. That's what he does when he doesn't see that we're looking like ourselves. And he just tried to tell us to calm down, try not to let the whole moment get get onto us. And he said it looks like everyone's trying to end it with one swing, so everyone stop doing that and just get on base and pass it to the next guy. And so I think everyone just tried to simplify their approach a little bit. Right before I got up to bat, Jimmy Overtop came up and laced one to center that everyone kind of thought was gone, and it was like I think right on the warning track. So he got that one good, and so I think maybe after that, our whole dugout was like, all right, we can hit this guy, and maybe that because I was on deck, and so maybe I got a little confidence from seeing Jimmy do that. So I think that's you know that those are the things that other people don't see, but that every single guy on the team plays a role in a game like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it was funny you mentioned Jimmy. I was gonna bring that up. It's like right before he came up. I mean, Jimmy had an awesome,
Mhm.
awesome year. I mean, he was a home run killer. And when I saw that, because I remember watching it live, like when I saw he kind of almost got a hold of one, you had that like sense. Clemson might get something going, and then lo and behold, the Andrew Ciufo comes up to bat. Nobody knows what to expect, and you got, I mean, you got like just enough on there to really get it to go out.
Yeah, I mean, I I hit it and I was thinking to myself, all right, Jimmy just crushed his and it didn't go anywhere. Obviously, he's much more of a power hitter than me. So I was like, drop somewhere. Like I hope. And it just kept carrying. I guess I got it on the right angle, and put a good swing on a hard fastball. And so, when someone's throwing that hard, you don't need to try to do too much. You just need to, barrel it up. And I was just trying to stay simple and just get on base. But it wound up carrying out somehow. And I'll just never forget the feeling of, hitting first base and realizing that it was out and looking back and seeing my whole team flood home plate. And, coming into them, again, like I said, we've heard the whole offseason that this is the game. And, we've all worked so hard together, and just, being able to come into my team like that and celebrate with them was just a feeling that hopefully I'll live again, but I'll never forget what that felt like.
Yeah, I remember reading like you even said like when you're rounding the bases, you blacked out for a second, where you're just like, and I'm
Yeah,
assuming shocked, like you couldn't believe it.
yeah, I couldn't believe it. Again, I didn't think I had, the power to get it out to dead center at a field like that. Um, yeah, and I especially my mom and dad were there, kind of right behind the dugout too. So it was a great overall feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. You made history too with that swing, as I'm sure you probably heard like 100 times. But I mean that whole context of the game was awesome. And then you had to go out there, the next day and play them. Like, and you obviously won, but I can't imagine like what was the how did you kind of reset where it's like, okay, we had this huge moment, like we got to go out there and do this again.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Backus, helps us with that and says, "All right, celebrate this one until midnight, and then once that clock hits 12:01, then it's a new day." And so whether it's good or bad, that's kind of part of the mental training that he instills in us in the off season. And yeah, I remember coming into team breakfast on Sunday before the game, and ESPN was on. Like they showed the clip, and I was like, "That's cool," but we got another game to play. And so everyone just tries to come back to neutral and know that we're going to play a game that's going to start at 0-0. So we can't just say, "Oh, we won this one game. It doesn't matter," and kind of like rest a little bit. We just need to even play harder. And especially coming back home and playing at DKS on Sunday was definitely great.
Yeah, that must have been cool. You gotta admit though, ESPN, like, come on, that's pretty cool, right?
It's very cool. And I think, just playing at a program like this, when anyone does something cool or makes a cool play, it has that recognition that will, travel a little bit on social media or ESPN. Um, but again, we don't really focus on that. We just try to play for each other and win. And our obviously the main goal is to win a national championship. So
Yeah, definitely. So I want to talk about you coming to Clemson originally. I remember you mentioned before, like in the portal, might have been other teams looking at you, but something that really stuck out to me was like you said, as coming in like out of high school, like you always want to play at a powerhouse in the ACC, and then you do, and like obviously you had some great moments, but like what does it mean to you to like kind of realize like, hey, like obviously you want to win a national championship, but like, hey, I'm like one step closer. I'm doing what I've always dreamt of, like playing in the ACC.
yeah, it's amazing. And I look back on the times of adversity, injury, that COVID season, kind of not knowing what was going on. And I kind of just become thankful for all that, because who knows, without even one of those, maybe I wouldn't, be here. Um, so, I'm just thankful for everyone who's kind of helped me, get to this point and helped me with their whole recruiting process, and, all the schools that reached out. It's a good feeling when you kind of dream about going to a school like this and they give you an opportunity and you come in and you prove yourself, and it works out. But yeah, I've always dreamed of playing at a school like Clemson, and I'm so happy to be here, and that's why I couldn't really turn down another year.
Yeah, yeah. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Was it a um I don't know, full circle. I'll say full circle moment where your first game for Clemson was against a Big East opponent against Xavier?
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've known Coach O'Connor, that's their head coach, for a while. Um, so yeah, it was definitely cool and funny.
Mhm.
Seeing him at Clemson. But I mean, he's a great guy, great coach. Um, yeah, it was definitely weird. Like, what are the odds that my first year at Clemson, our first, you know, weekend is against Xavier, who I've played so many times.
Yeah, no, that is crazy. So one more game I want to cover for this year was, I mean, I think one of the coolest comebacks, and I think it was also, in my opinion, probably the biggest series in terms of like making people realize that Clemson's legit. And that was a Florida State series because Florida State, top 10 in the nation. It's like, okay, like what can Clemson do now, right? And swept them. But that last game in the series down 11-2, right? I mean, like walk me through that. What was happening?
Yeah, that was an insane series. Um, and I think that was the time that Blake Wright was unconscious at the plate, unconscious. Um, but yeah, again, I think that just goes back to our mental training that Coach Bakich does an exceptional job with. Um, you know, I think towards the end of the year they started calling us the cardiac tigers. I think
Yeah.
just because we could go down and then something switches and we start playing like ourselves. Um, but yeah, that was a whirlwind of a series, um, especially a team like that who wound up going really far in the playoffs. Um, yeah, it was, and obviously we were just trying to play and win. We didn't really know what was at stake. Um, but yeah, I mean, big hits from everyone in the lineup. Blake, Hinderleiter, Jimmy, just like clutch moments that a team who wants to go far in the postseason needs. So those were the guys last year. They would come up clutch in every moment we needed them to. So
Yeah, no, that was a wild game. And I mean, you had I guess the insurance single too, right? Which to go 14.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that was just crazy. Like, I think in that moment, a lot of people realized like Clemson's pretty good now, right? Like they got a squad. So that must have
definitely.
been pretty neat. Um, so looking now at the regional, I know you didn't play in the series, but still, I'm sure you had to have a big presence in the locker room, right? I mean, you were a veteran in a sense. I know a newer guy, but a vet, and you had to make an impact. But what was that whole like regional like in the clubhouse? Because the end of the season, Clemson didn't look, they weren't playing, Clemson baseball, right? I think you finished 13-13 in the year. Um, but like what kind of propelled that team to finally get over the hump? I mean, it was you're all about breaking all these dry spells for teams, but what was that atmosphere like? What was it playing or watching the regional being part of that?
Yeah, I think it kind of felt like it was a new season. And so it didn't matter, what happened in the regular season. Anything can happen in the postseason. Um, and yeah, I think we just tried to, we didn't know who was going to be in our regional till a couple days before that. Um, and it was my first time playing in a regional and kind of being in a part of one. So it was a new experience for me, but I knew that anything could happen. And so we didn't try to change anything. We kind of just trusted our training, both physically and mentally. Um, and again, I think our coaches just kept instilling that confidence in us that if we play like ourselves and hit a certain amount of goals that we kind of set for ourselves before every game, that we're 100% going to win. And so there was really never any doubt. Even I don't even know if we went down or when we would go down. It would just be like, all right, there's nothing to worry about, and that comes from the leaders on the team and the coaches.
Yeah, regionals are crazy too. I felt like even in the Clemson regional, pitchers would just be throwing like 3,000 pitches, like everyone would be leaving it all out there, right? The games must have been, I mean, were those some of the more like intense games just to watch and be a part of in that clubhouse?
Definitely, because while it's not really talked about, everyone knows what's at stake, and so that it definitely changes at certain aspects of coaching, because there's really, I mean, there's not as much of a need to save certain bullets in the tank, and so especially if you're losing, you know what's at stake. You want to do everything just to win one more game, and so I feel like sometimes it could be hard to not look so far into the future, but you just need to focus on one game at a time, and then before you know it, if you play the way you're supposed to, then you'll be in a super, and kind of same thing from there.
Yeah, definitely. So season obviously wrapped up. Uh, but the regional, like when you got over that hump of finally winning one in like 14 years, I want to say I think 2010 was the last one. Was that like a breath of fresh air for the team and just like wow, like 127, like we accomplished something that's like bigger than us.
Absolutely, and everyone. I mean, I honestly wasn't aware of it, but EB told us before the regional even started. He said, "Listen, this is what everyone in the community is thinking. Like Clemson hasn't won a regional in X amount of years. Not to make us scared or stressed, but just to kind of, like you said, know, like tell us what's on the line that's bigger than just our team." And so I think it was a great thing to tell us because it just made us focus even more and work even harder. So
Yeah, and the celebrations were awesome too. I climbing the wall, like that was cool. That was awesome to watch.
it's amazing, just celebrating on the field with a packed stadium. Um, and even me, who was still in my brace at that time, I was just hobbling along the wall and kind of giving people high fives and everything. But now every single guy on the team, between the players, the staff, the student managers, everyone just enjoyed that moment so much.
So what's Coach Bakich like just as a coach, as a person, like what's he like to you?
He is he is the most unique coach I've ever experienced in such a good way. Um, when I think of him, like the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that he knows how to handle every situation, whether it be in baseball and life, in whatever, good, bad, indifferent. Um, he knows how to handle everything, and so a way I would describe him, he's an 8-year old in a 40-year-old body, or however old he is. Um, he has the ability to, screw around and talk like a player, and just have normal conversations, but then he flips a switch and he's the head coach of the Tigers, and so there's that dynamic in him that just makes him so unbelievable. And this is like the perfect job and position for him at this school. You can see how bought in he is, and how much he wants to, take care of his players, and do everything to create a winning culture, which he is so successful at. And just one thing about him, he doesn't see his players as just roster spots. He values the idea of helping his players obviously get better on the field, but then helping them become better men, because he knows that later in life you're going to be dads, husbands, all that stuff, and so he wants to have an impact on us later in life, not just right now.
Yeah, and that's what you want out of a coach. I mean, everyone that whenever people talk so fondly about the coaches, it's because they make an impact on them and
Yep,
having that relationship. I mean, that must be part of the reason why you almost wanted to come to Clemson, right?
and that's probably the biggest reason why I wanted to come back for a 6th year,
Mhm.
is to be around him every day and continue to learn from him. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about him.
So entering this final year, well, maybe, right? I think it's,
This is the final year. I have nothing.
so entering your final year, something I think might be glimpsed over maybe is just, you're a 6 year, but like you're got to be a big veteran, big vocal point on this team. Have some new guys coming in just from the portal. Obviously, some of the good players still a little bit younger. How can you step up? And I mean, not that you weren't already, but like, what role do you have to take on in the clubhouse now of being like a voice of the team?
Yeah. I think that a lot of older guys and leaders and captains graduated last year or got drafted. Um, and so obviously the biggest one that I think of is Blake Wright, who was here for all 4 years, who didn't know anything other than Clemson and was a great leader on the team, both on the field and off the field. And him being one of my really good friends, I think I've learned a lot from him specifically on kind of what it takes to be a good leader. And it doesn't need to be, you screaming at people and like, telling people where to go and what to do. I think it kind of just comes from more so your consistent work ethic. And for these new guys coming in to see that and kind of want to follow you. And so I think it's just a combination of, positivity, motivating your guys, and, just working hard yourself and having other people follow you, and, you taking freshmen in and say, all right, this is what we're supposed to do here. And, being a guy that, everyone on the team feels comfortable coming to and talking to about anything. So I think that's the biggest thing. We'll have a bunch of other older guys that'll step up in the same way. Tristan Bissetta, Reed Garris, who have been here for, I think this is both their fourth years, they're seniors. That'll, just step in, fill those shoes of those old guys that left last year. So I think obviously every fall is different with new guys coming in. It'll take a little bit to kind of mesh as a team, but again, I trust Coach Bakich with everything to, recruit the right guys and build a team culture and all that stuff. So
Definitely, that makes sense. And do you have any personal goals that you want to accomplish, whether that's, maybe getting a certain average or just leaving it all out in the field? Like, do you have any goals you're striving for?
no, not specifically, not really any statistics that I want to achieve. I think this year's for me is just more about having as much fun every single day, not taking it for granted, and becoming best friends with all these new teammates and the ones that were here last year, and just winning with them. I think those are my biggest goals.
Yeah, definitely. More team oriented stuff too. And yeah, I mean, I think next year could be a really good year for Clemson. We'll see what happens with it. I have to ask real quick, just, pretty good player himself, but Cam Kennarella obviously generate a lot of noise, great player. What's he like as a player, as a person as well? Like just being around him, like
Yeah,
how is he just so good, I guess.
he makes the game of baseball look easy,
Hmm.
and I think while maybe in the locker room you won't really hear a lot from him, or he's not the biggest rah rah guy, he has the biggest compete within him, and you can see that when he gets on the field. Um, in the locker room, he's so funny, great teammate, and works super hard. And like I said, he's like a unicorn. Like it doesn't make sense some of the catches he makes and the types of pitches he hits, and it's just in him. I don't know what else to say, but he has a very long career in baseball.
Yeah, he makes some. Yeah, you're right. He does make some pretty hard things look pretty easy. Like that one catch he had, obviously everybody knows about. Yeah, I don't. I mean, like Willie Mays. I don't even know what was going on. Like that was
I don't even
unreal.
think he doesn't even think about it. He just does it. He just makes it look so easy. It's insane.
Yeah, no, that's nuts. I was blown away by that. Um, so being from New York, right? Yankees fan, I'm assuming. Was Derek Jeter like a role, like an idol to you?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Do you have,
grew up watching him. Both my dad and my brother are diehard Mets fans, so they respect Jeter, but they don't love the Yankees. But
mm,
I strayed off somehow.
yeah, the Mets, that's a tough team to like. I'm a Yankees fan myself, so hopefully they can get it going. Do you watch MLB at all?
Yeah, I do. I honestly, when I'm home, I watch more Mets games than Yankee games, just because my dad always has it on. I enjoy watching the Mets with him. Um, I definitely like the Yankees more.
Yeah. When you watch baseball, do you like pick up on certain things or watch it differently than like I guess an average fan would?
Definitely.
Mm.
Just in terms of just pitch sequences and at bats. Like I kind of put myself in the hitter's shoes and say, all right, he just threw this pitch in this location. Like, what do I think is coming next? And kind of just, I don't know. I feel like I don't just watch the game. I feel like my brain kind of, works along in with the game. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And do you like try and pick little things out where you saw like you watch Mets, for example, like, oh, Lindor did that, right? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like I want to model that maybe.
Yeah. I think it's just even those higher IQ plays that you don't really see that often. Um, you can work on those too to kind of just like increase your arsenal. But yeah, like certain plays that Lindor or Anthony Volpe for the Yankees make, they're obviously great shortstops, and I just kind of look at their footwork and certain plays that they make. If I were to do it any differently, that how can I improve that? So I'm always trying to pick up little things.
Definitely. And so I got two more questions to ask before we wrap it up. One of them being related to just the draft. Obviously, you said a couple of your teammates got drafted, Blake Wright being one of them. Watching guys that you played with, right, for a year, I mean, what's that moment like just seeing like your friends kind of fulfill that goal of theirs, like going to the MLB?
It's so rewarding. Um, those four guys that got picked, no one deserves it more than them. I mean, I saw how hard they work and how dedicated they were, and they would never talk about it. They would just, be about it and do the things that someone who wants to play professional baseball does. They would never complain, and they were on early for everything. And I built great relationships with the four of them over this past year. I'm just beyond happy for them that they're exactly where they need to be.
Definitely. That's awesome to
I
hear.
guess it was five of them. I think it
Obviously,
was, yeah,
I think
yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
Blake, Will Taylor, Rocco Reed, Tristan Smith, and Austin Gordon.
Bang. All
Yeah.
five. That's a big five. Yeah. No, it's cool though. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like seeing them. I mean, seeing your friends accomplish dreams. So, I mean, that's pretty sweet in itself.
Yeah.
And so my final question I have for you is, you know, obviously you talked about what you want to achieve on the field this year and everything. Just for like, I guess, I don't know, for anyone that's watching, like, what do you want people to take away about you, right? They know you're a great player. You leave it all on the field, but just as a person, like, what do you kind of want your to be remembered for, and like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Good question. Um, I want to leave a mark on Clemson, and while I'm only here for 2 years, this is my last year. Um, I've never enjoyed playing baseball as much as I enjoy playing here, and so that comes from a lot of other things than just the game on the field. It comes with you know walking to the field and seeing all the fans, like being super excited to see the players on the team, and going downtown and people running into you and saying, "Oh, Clemson baseball, we're huge fans, we're season ticket holders," and kind of just the whole community that surrounds Clemson baseball and Clemson athletics as a whole. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just want people to know that I am going to work super hard this year, and the team is going to work super hard this year because we accomplished a lot last year, but ultimately we didn't get to where we wanted to go. And this year, more than any of the years, we're going to, that's obviously our main goal, and we're going to do everything we can to accomplish it. And along the way, we're going to make a lot of memories and have a lot of fun and interact with fans and all that good stuff. So I guess that would be it.
Yeah, definitely. Was it? Sorry, this just came to mind. I have a friend that went to Georgetown, right? And that's in DC. Okay, Clemson. Yeah, it's Clemson. Like, what was that change like for you? Was there one?
A huge one. I mean, I was used to living in Washington, D.C., in the middle of traffic and rats running all over the place for 4 years. And, it took me a while to get used to it, but I did. And I liked living in D.C. But, part of me always thought like there's a different college experience out there somewhere where there's lakes and, land and, just what it is down here. And I always kind of wondered what that would be like. And so that was definitely point for me while I was in the transfer portal to, go somewhere like this that has, the big football school and the Southern culture, which I love.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's a perfect spot for me. I love, you know, living down here and just spending day to day, just being here.